why I feel worse when I face personal truth.
So this is my first one, is it? Like,
yes,
feeling worse facing personal truth.
Facing personal truth. Now, some people who've known us for a while have probably experienced this, where they hear something about themselves, they think, yeah, that's true, but now I feel shockingly bad. So our question here is, why does that happen? Why do I feel worse when I face personal truth? Aren't I actually doing something more loving by facing truth? Shouldn't there be less compensation or some kind of reward for facing truth? I shouldn't feel so bad, should I? So why do I feel worse when I face personal truth sometimes?
Well, the reality is there are many, many reasons why a person might feel worse, and probably what we need to do is list a few, more substantial reasons. But for people to be aware that even though we're going to discuss, 3 or 4 substantial reasons to why you might feel worse by facing personal truth, it doesn't mean the list is exhaustive. There might be a lot of reasons why this happens. But what we need to do is give people a bit of a clue, if you like, about what the possible reasons might be. And that way we can help them sort of see things a bit more realistically and analytically when it comes to this issue of feeling worse when you have personal truth presented to you.
Yes.
We know from our experience that the majority of people, particularly when we go to groups and things like that, the majority of people who have some personal truth presented to them usually react quite badly and quite angrily, and oftentimes we never see them again, actually. And all this is, because they obviously felt bad in the moment, and then didn't want to repeat the experience, and there must have been a reason why they felt bad in the moment. And we probably need to explain the potential reasons, and some of them at least, so that they can come to understand what's really going on.
Yes, all right. So we'll talk about 4 main areas where that could potentially lead us to feel worse, and I'll actually go into it in detail with you. I'll just list them now. So the first is I can feel worse due to a new sensitivity to the actual compensation I've been living with and the actual sin that I'm in.
Yeah, so this is basically saying that there's a new, you've raised out of some emotional denial.
Yes.
And you've got to be, you're now aware of some things that were within you before, but
you were denying.
Before. So that's the first one.
I can feel worse due to an attachment to my facade.
So in other words, I really like the person I think I am.
I think I'm an
And you just told me that I'm a different person than I think I am. I don't like you for that.
Yes. That feels pretty bad.
That feels pretty bad.
I can feel worse because my addictions are no longer being met.
Yeah, so, I've got the addictions which go, gimme, whatever it is I'm looking for. It might be physical or emotional, mostly.
Validation.
Sexual,
you're a man, give me validation.
Yeah, give me whatever you want from the person, and the person not doing it anymore.
No, they're saying, actually, I'm not feeling that turned on by you right now.
I don't go for what you're doing, and that makes us feel like, how dare you?
I feel bad.
You don't love me anymore. You're not meeting my demands and addictions.
Yes, and I feel very worse. And I can feel worse due to the desire to sin still remaining within me.
Yes, in other words, I see that, yes, I do that. Yep. Wow, yeah, I do. And what you said is true.
Yep.
Yeah, I see that. And then all of a sudden I have this feeling come over me, wow, but I just want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Well,
even if I don't have the feeling that I want to keep doing it, I might even self-punish about it. But the truth is, the fact that I still want to keep doing it means that I'm incurring compensation.
But my view of self-punishment, I know it's a bit of a digression, is that you do it because you want to avoid stopping the actual thing.
That's what I mean.
That's why you're self-punished.
That's what I mean.
So at the end of the day, it's still that you want to do it.
Yes.
And so you want to get the results, and you feel within yourself you want to. And now every time you meet that person, you're reminded. Aren't you? It's like, they told me about that thing, and they're telling me again, and they're telling me again. And sometimes it happens like that. And they're telling me the same thing again. And, I just want to, my better course of action is to not see that person anymore. Yeah. And then I'll be able to live in this sin without thinking it's bad.
You'll go back to denial. So let's talk about these in more detail, Hank.
Yes, that'd be good.
Yeah, okay. So the first one, feeling worse due to new sensitivity to compensation and sin. When I face personal truth, why is it that I often feel worse due to this new sensitivity to compensation and sin?
Well, once you feel the truth, or once somebody exposes the truth to you, there are a number of new things going on inside of you now that weren't going on before. Before, you could ignore it. You could ignore the truth about a lot of things about it. It's like, as people say, there's a common saying, isn't there, that ignorance is bliss. And the reason why it's thought to be bliss, it's not actually bliss from God's perspective. And in fact, ignorance is bliss is a very negative, actually, way of believing, a negative belief from God's perspective.
Yeah.
But the reason why we think it's bliss is because if we're not aware of something, we can then ignore it. And we can ignore it easily. But when a person tells us the truth, now there's a whole series of things that we can't easily ignore. And that's a problem.
Yes. So the first one is?
So the first thing is, I can't ignore now that the compensation for that sin exists. I can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah. So I can't ignore that there's this negative feeling that I have that's probably associated with that being true about me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that it's harder to ignore it now.
Yes.
Because I'm now sensitive. The truth has opened up a sensitive pathway in me now.
Yes.
To this emotional sensitivity to that being potentially true. Before, I could just walk around going, no, I'm great. No, there's no problem with me. Everything's fine, and not even think about it. But when somebody tells me it, now it's going to start bothering me.
Yes. Yeah.
At some level emotionally.
Yes.
If I continue to think about it and if I see the person.
Yes. Yes. And then corresponding with that, what often then happens is we start to get this niggling feeling, I'm going to have to change this about myself.
It's like,
and that's not a great feeling if you still want to avoid the emotion that's associated with that truth.
Yeah, it's like we're now constantly confronted with, yes, I can see this is the thing, and it's a bit annoying now that I'm aware, that's the feeling we normally have. But also there's this feeling of, now that I know it's there, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if we've become sensitive, as you said, like, I'm doing this thing, I want this thing, but it's causing, it doesn't feel that good inside me. I'm probably going to have to change it, but I don't really want to change it. I've got to deal with something else.
Now that somebody's made me aware of it, I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
And the way the conscience work is interesting here, because when we talk later, we'll talk about the conscience, and the conscience actually, once the pathway is open for God to communicate truth to you about the matter, God's going to keep knocking on that door through the conscience. And and as a result of that, it feels like you can't stop thinking about it, or you can't, things keep reminding you of it. This heightened emotional sensitivity to the problem is now causing you some pain and suffering.
And the guilt and the pain that are a natural part of the compensation is harder to ignore. I'm more aware of it.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
So this is why in the short term, when I get told the personal truth and I become aware of it as a truth, I can start to feel worse.
Yeah, it's a this, and really we're saying it's a heightened emotional sensitivity to our true condition.
Yeah.
So in other words, by somebody exposing the truth, or telling the truth, now I am a bit more awareness emotionally and intellectually that there is a problem that exists and that I may need to think about doing something about it.
Sorry. And crucially here, it's not that pain and negative feeling didn't exist before.
Correct.
It was always there, but my denial was able to dampen down these negative feelings.
Yes, I could,
feeling uncomfortable.
and I could dampen it down by denying the truth of it.
Yes.
But when somebody tells me the truth of it, now it's harder to dampen the truth of it down.
Yes.
Without avoiding the person.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So often when we tell the truth to somebody, we find that that's the last time we ever see them
Absolutely.
for that reason.
Absolutely. But hopefully that new sensitivity.
Well, the new
to
sensitivity is going to continue
Yes.
playing until they either decide to allow themselves to take action about that sensitivity or to try to re-suppress it again,
Yeah.
which has its own negative consequences.
Yeah. Yeah. Feeling worse due to attachment to the facade. So again, here we're talking about when I face personal truth, why is it I often feel worse as a result of me being quite attached to my facade?
Well, we've got to remember here that our facade is our personal image of ourselves. And it's not just presented to others, it's presented to ourselves. So most of us have a huge addiction to continue presenting this image of ourselves to ourselves. It's sort of, you could liken it to, you know, having a plastic surgery facelift because you're not happy with your face.
Yes.
You're now seeing the facade. You don't have to worry anymore about what you really look like. You now, you now think you look like that new person. You know, but underlying all it all is still the old person there. But you now want to believe and wish to believe that you are this new person. The reason why we hold on to a facade is because we are addicted to it.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons. Now, there's lots and lots of reasons. There's literally hundreds of possible reasons as to why we might be addicted to our facade. And we'll mention a few things that occur emotionally as a result of it. But rather than discussing all the hundreds of reasons, we need to see that most of us have this very, very strong addiction to maintaining an image of ourselves that we ourselves can accept.
Yeah.
And when somebody else tells us truth,
Yes.
that image of ourselves has now started to be dismantled.
It's challenged in some way,
challenged.
and that feels not so great because we are invested, as you said, in, we believe we're more acceptable to ourselves, to others, if we are this version of ourselves.
It's to ourselves we're mostly interested in.
That's what
so
I
we
found,
are. We are more acceptable to ourselves if we maintain this illusion that this is how we are, and this is what we look like, and so forth.
So when someone tells us personal truth, I'm feeling more exposed now. I also might feel some shame about my sin.
Like, somebody's digging down underneath this facade and I don't want them to see what's there.
Yeah.
Because what's there I'm ashamed of, and that's why I created my facade.
So that's an unpleasant feeling. I might even take now actions to fix this behaviour, this thing that's been pointed out to me, but I do it in my facade.
That's right.
So it's not a real process I'm undertaking.
So really what I'm doing here is I'm going,
more.
okay, that plastic surgery didn't work too good last time, so what I'm going to do is have a patch type job and get this bit fixed up,
bit
right?
more over.
to get it sorted out.
And we do know a lot of people don't, where they've heard personal truth and then they just modify their behaviour, change the facade.
Yeah, it's a learned behaviour from childhood, actually. Because what we were taught frequently in childhood is that you don't have to clear away the cause of what you do.
Yes.
You just need to fix the effects of what you do. Yeah. And the facade, developing a new one, is a way of, or just modifying or tweaking the old one, is a way of getting out of having to actually change the underlying cause for that behaviour.
Yeah.
And so we're addicted to tweaks.
Yes.
And sometimes we actually create whole new facades when we're relating to different people, in fact. So we have one set of facades with our partner, another completely different set of facades for our workmates, another completely different set of facades with our parents, and so forth and so forth. And most people, as we've discussed in our assistance group, I think it was the second one in 2016, most people have usually anywhere from 5 to 7 standard facades that they use in different situations.
Yeah.
And then they have tweaks that they make to those facades to perfect them over their lifetime.
Yes. But we're talking here about when we're so attached to those things, someone points out the truth, we can try and fix this situation, how we see it, by generating another facade or fixing up a level of the facade.
By making a tweak.
But that actually ends up making us feel worse because we're getting further and further removed from who we are.
Well, it might not make us initially feel worse. Oftentimes we do it because we think we're avoiding feeling worse.
Yes.
But in the long run, yes, it will, because it detunes you further from your true self. And the problem with detuning further from your true self is that eventually you will feel worse.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
So that's going to be a long-term result, even though you might have the tweak might give you a short-term satisfaction. But to be frank, any person who's well enough developed emotionally will notice that all you're trying to do is make a tweak.
Yes.
Rather than actually cure the problem.
Yeah.
And those particular people will remind you of that as well. So you can't even get away with your tweaks anymore.
Yeah. 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 So our attachment to our facade is all about resistance to breaking down the fiction that we have about ourselves to ourselves.
Yes, and we're often violently opposed to that. When I say violently, we will often resort to violence in order to oppose
Yep.
a person seemingly destroying the image that we have of ourselves.
And because we view this facade as the most acceptable part of ourselves, then when that gets challenged by hearing personal truth, we often feel more afraid that other people will attack us because they're going to see something in us that they feel is not good, because we view it as not good. And so then we can feel worse just because we're feeling more afraid.
Yeah. That comes from a lot of personal shame as well. Like we often have, when our facade is exposed, the underlying condition starts to come through, which we're ashamed of.
Yes.
So often we wanted to maintain the illusion of our facade because it prevents us from feeling the emotion of shame.
Yeah.
And now the emotion of shame starts popping up every time we see that person, or every time that person shows us something, the emotion of shame starts popping up. And that's going to cause us to want to suppress that emotion if we don't have a desire to feel it. And that, of course, is going to cause us to react negatively and feel worse about the truth being exposed.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. All right. So there's lots more reasons why our attachment to our facade makes us feel worse when we hear personal truth.
Yes, and you could discuss the matter for weeks on end, really.
You could,
the other
yeah,
day.
yeah.
What we're trying to do here is give our listeners a bit of a chance to see what might be the motivations inside of themselves for avoiding personal truth and resisting it, which obviously has its own compensatory effects.
Yes.
But normally you would think, and this is the general theme we're trying to discuss, is that normally you would think that accepting personal truth makes you feel better.
Because of the compensation.
Because of the compensation rewards for accepting personal truth. But actually there are many things it exposes which may make you feel worse, which is the compensation for your past sins that you're yet to be sensitive to. In other words, there are things that happened in the compensation, things that happened to your soul before when you did the bad thing, but now you become aware of it.
Yeah.
And oftentimes the becoming aware of it feels worse than it being there.
Yeah. So it's like there's so much about truth exposing this current situation. So often personal truth exposes the pain we're already living in, but just in denial of.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so this is always a good sign if a person does feel worse initially with these matters, because it means that, and if they feel worse because of their facade, it means that at least now they're sensitive to the fact that the facade is operating. Whereas before, when they felt okay about their facade, they weren't even sensitive about it. So it is growth.
Yes.
But just it can sometimes feel worse, that's all.